Industrialist Henry J. Kaiser, who built Liberty ships during World War II, would partner with Joseph Fraser after the war, who was president of Graham Page. Fast forward to 1954, Joseph Fraser would leave the company because Henry J. started dumping money into something that sales were good, but to be fair, the Big Three wasn't really making any new cars right after the war, and it gave the independents a false chance. In the early 50s, America started looking across the pond at what the Europeans were building: sports cars. Nash would be the first with the Healey. Technically, Crosley Hotshot was the first in 1949. Both Kaiser and GM wanted to offer a sports car, but made of a totally different material, fiberglass. Ironically, the Kaiser Darrin was originally a rejected design that would be put into production. But before getting into all of it, I'm Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel where so many people are caught up in getting the latest and greatest things. What about the classic cars from yesteryear? Let's face it, once these caretakers are gone, what's going to happen to them? That's what this channel is about: lost and forgotten classic cars, diving deep on the history, specs, design, most importantly, showing what these cars are like. We post between 4 and 5 episodes each week, with engine episodes generally on Wednesdays. If that sounds of interest, a channel that you will totally dig, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Spring is finally here. If you have a cool car in your personal collection, maybe you're affiliated with a museum that has cool cars that you would like see featured on this channel, drop me a line at what_it's_like. I know people judge all the time about having a Yahoo account.com if interested. 1954 Kaiser model lineup. But before getting into all of that, a bit of background. Joseph Fraser, who was Henry J's partner, would leave the company in 1951. Kaiser Fraser would be rebranded as Kaiser Motors. In 1953, Kaiser would buy Willis Overland for the Jeep brand. Bit of a side note, have you ever noticed that every company that has owned Jeep has gone bankrupt? It's almost like a curse. Willis didn't make the original Jeep. Bantam did. For the United States Army, there is a whole story. There's an episode that we covered on it. You could watch it after this episode if you're interested. Guy by the name of Howard Dutch Darren, who designed the likes of the Packard Darren as well as the Packard Clipper, is now chief designer over at Kaiser. Darren took it upon himself to design a sports car for the Kaiser Corporation, unbeknownst to the bigwigs at Kaiser. Howard Darrin would base the sports car off of the Henry J chassis. Darrin would make a clay mock-up in 52. Darrin would commission Bill Tritt to transform it into a running prototype. Tritt was involved in the Glaspar 2 G2 and Wood Drill Wildfire, which were two fiberglass cars that predate both the Kaiser Darrin and the Corvette, that will get their own episode one day. The prototype Darrin was built of fiberglass. Fiberglass wasn't a new material, with a patent for fiberglass going clear back to the 1880s, but it wouldn't be mass-produced until the 1930s. The first car to be made of fiberglass wasn't any of the previously mentioned cars. Do you know what the very first car to use fiberglass in body construction was? In the comment section for extra points. Once Tritt mated the fiberglass body to the Henry J chassis, Darrin was ready to reveal it to Henry J Kaiser and the top brass over at Kaiser Motors. Because remember, Darrin did this as a pet project without permission, using his own money. Howard Darrin's offer of having a meeting about talking about a sports car concept was ultimately rejected. Darrin was persistent in not taking no for an answer. He did eventually get to show his car to the top brass and Henry J himself. Henry J would say they were in the business to make family cars, not sports cars. Darren thought his design had promise, though, and you have to remember this is 1952. There wasn't a huge selection of sports cars on the market in the US market during this point in time. Buyers had their choice of the Nash Healey or the Crosley Hotshot, which 52 was the last year for. Corvette hasn't come out yet, so Darren thought if Henry J. Kaiser wasn't on board, Darren would go at it alone. Really cool, interesting side note. On March 14th of 1951, Henry J. lost his first wife, Bess Fosberg. He ended up marrying Alice Chester, who was the nurse who took care of his first wife. They were married April 10th, 1951, and she was a lot younger than Kaiser. And she was also present during this meeting. After hearing everything that Henry J. had to say, she said, "Oh no, not so fast. We gonna build this here car." Alice was really smitten with the design, saying it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She would persuade Henry J. to build the car, which was called the Kaiser Darrin. The first Kaiser Darrin was shown at the Los Angeles Motorama September of 1952 with great public and media response. Dubbed the sports car that everybody's been waiting for, the car was unveiled at the New York Auto Show spring of 53. They kept having setbacks with fiberglass body shells, which were outsourced to a California-based company called Glasspar. Also, there was a fire at the Glasspar factory that was started under mysterious circumstances. Magazines gave positive feedback on the cars, but Kaiser would only build 435 examples. So let's compare. This is a bit of a different type of comparison. We're going to compare it with the other sports cars you could have purchased. In the comment section, if you like it done this way, maybe we'll do some more like this. So, starting at the top, 1954 Nash Healey, which is made of aluminum. In the middle, 1954 Kaiser Darrin, made out of glass fiber. And at the bottom, 1954 Corvette, it's also made out of fiberglass. Starting with the Nash Healey, it's the only one to have side windows. The Nash Healey was powered by an inline 6 258.6 cubic inch displacement, 7 main bearing taken straight from the Ambassador, 2 side draft SU carburetors. It's good for 140 horsepower, 210 pound-feet, capable of a theoretical top speed of 120 miles per hour. It'll do the 0 to 60 time in 11 seconds. It could be had with a 4-speed, which I would assume would be with overdrive, 3-speed manual, or automatic. Miles per gallon is about 15 to 20, possibly higher, depending on final drive ratio, tires, transmission, etc. It weighs 2,780 pounds for the convertible. Oh yeah, this one could be had in convertible or hardtop. Can't say the same thing for the other two. The hardtop weighed considerably more at 3,140 pounds. Price: $4,721, which is equivalent to you spending $54,462.79 the year 2024. And it's worth pointing out that that's for the convertible model. The hardtop costs considerably more. Moving on to the Corvette. The Corvette was powered by a modified truck engine with full pressurized oiling lubrication, 3 side draft carburetors, overhead valve, producing 150 to 155 horsepower, 223 pound-feet, capable of a theoretical top speed of 108 miles per hour while achieving an average 15 to 20 miles per gallon, somewhere around there. It does 0 to 60 in 11.2 seconds. It weighs 2,840 pounds. The 1954 Corvette was only available with one transmission, which you had to pay for. It was only available as a convertible. The hardtop would not be offered until 1956. The base price was $2,774, but Corvette made consumers purchase all of the options like heater, radio, turn signal indicators. You even had to pay extra for the Power Glide transmission, which brought the real price up to $3,523, which is equivalent to you spending $40,642.32 in the year 2024. So let's talk specs on the Kaiser Darrin and see how it stacks up against the competition. 183 inches long, 69 inches wide, 54 inches tall. It rides a wheelbase of 100 inches. It weighs 2,176 pounds. Price, $3,668, which would be equivalent to you spending $42,315.08 in the year 2024. Possible straight there with most of those numbers. You're just missing a 7 and you'd be perfect. Total 1954. Kaiser was 8,539 units. Kaiser Darren Sports Convertible was only 435 units when compared to the Chevy Corvette, which had a production run of 3,640 units, and the Nash Healey, which had a production run of 90 units. It's pretty much right there in the center. As far as production numbers go, moving on to engine, only one engine on offer, 161 cubic inch displacement, inline 6, 2.6 liters. It's good for 90 horsepower, 4,200 RPM, 127 pound-feet, or 172 newton meters at 1600 RPM with a bore of 3.1 inches and a stroke of 3.5 inches. Compression is 7.6 to 1 for main bearings. It's important to note that these are all just baseline numbers, jumping off point, elevation, rear end size, tire size. A lot has to do with these numbers. When backed with a 4-speed manual transmission, 0 to 60 could be had in 14.6 seconds with a theoretical top speed of 94 miles per hour while achieving an average 22.3 to 25 miles per gallon, said to get up to 35 miles to the gallon in advertisement pieces. Kaiser Darrin was available in 4 colors. They had a white/cream, green, yellow, red. There were 2 cars that were painted blue. One was Henry J. Kaiser's personal car. The other one belonged to his wife, Alice. The Kaiser Darrin would only last 1 year, 1954. Kaiser would sell cars for 1 more year in 1955 before focusing on building utility vehicles. That's not the end of the story for the Darrin, however. Howard Darrin bought 50 examples or whatever wasn't sold that Kaiser had left over, retrofitted the cars, adding superchargers and multiple carburetors to get more power out of them. Howard even installed Cadillac V8s in a few cars and sold them at his Los Angeles studio. I found this 1954 Kaiser Darrin on display at the Gilmore Auto Museum, Hickory Corners, Michigan. Special thanks to the Gilmore for letting us feature this amazing rare car on the channel. If you guys are ever in the Kalamazoo area and looking for something to do, be sure to stop and check out the Gilmore Auto Museum for direction, ticket pricing, and hours of operation. Be sure to click the link below after the show. Let's talk styling on this bizarre looking car. Look at the turn signal indicators down here or running lights. Look at the shape. It mimics the grille shape. How about that? Headlights are Frenched. Sit inside here with this bezel. Goes around. Just look at how this part protrudes coming down towards the grill, which kind of looks like a clamshell, seashell. Bumpers are pretty basic with overriders and or bumperettes. Look at how this is all sculpted. There isn't any trim that goes around the wheel wells. Just kind of bent. Isn't rolled. This is riding on bias ply tires, 5.60 15. This
car also does not have any rocker molding. Notice this car does not have a cowl vent, opposing windshield wipers. Just look at the curved windscreen, wing windows, which the side wing window is plexiglass. The mirrors are mounted just in front of where the wing window brace is. Underneath this cover is where the convertible top would go.
Speaking of convertible top, this top has 3 positions: completely up, completely down. There's a middle option, which I call town car mode, which is not the correct term, but that is what I am calling it because it has the Landau bars and everything, and it just kind of looks like that, does it not?
Just look at how these hinges are designed. One side does the hinge part for this side, the other part does the hinge part for the trunk. The brake lights look like straight Kaiser brake lights. The bumpers mimic the front bumpers, except for the fact that it comes to almost like a point here in the center. License plate bracket with license plate light. Rear wheel wells are the same. Notice it's just kind of bent underneath here. Better look at the brake lights and bumper situation. Gas filler. Notice this one has a locking gas cap. One of this car's biggest quirks is the doors. The doors slide into the fenders.
Also, the door handles are only on the outside of the doors. There aren't any door handles on the inside, which is a very interesting design choice.
Just take a look at this interior. Here's what over the hood would look like. Here's what first person over the hood would look like.
On to the button switches and knobs, starting on the left and moving right. I personally love the font that they used. The first gauge pod has 2 gauges inside. At the top, you have the oil pressure. At the bottom, gasoline gauge, choke, tachometer. Notice it's times 100 instead of times 1,000. 55 and 60 are flipped. Vacuum pressure gauge, speedometer with odometer. 110, 120 have been flipped so you can see them. Notice the visors on the gauge pods. They look like little baseball caps. I think that's the cigarette lighter, coolant temperature, amp meter, key, and handbrake.
Above, there aren't any sun visors on either side. Notice the rear view mirror is mounted on the dash. Look at the curvature of that windscreen.
Taking a gander under the hood, 161 cubic inch displacement F-head engine. The F-head had a different valve layout. Exhaust valves ran next to the pistons, like in a flathead engine, but the intake valves were on top, like an overhead valve configuration, often called IOE, which stood for intake over exhaust. Outside the block, oil filtration, vent piping on both sides, 6-volt battery mounted at the rear. On the positive side, great conversation piece. They are rare, rust-proof body, swooping style, different door concept with them sliding into the fenders. There is a registry where the location and owners can be known. According to Barrett Jackson, in 2019, 300 are known to survive against it. They are very costly to buy now. If you can find one even at all. Rust-proof body, but the body is subject to cracking over time. Hardware and windshields are impossible to find. I have a very good friend named Paul Vaughn who restored two of these. One was about 20 years ago. That was chassis 249. It was a green one. He restored one about 15 years ago, chassis 75, a yellow car. He even built a pedal car. He personally told me that getting in and out is very hard, and you do not want to grab the windshield as a brace because it will break, and they are super hard, if not impossible to find. The doors, they don't open very wide, and there's nothing to really hold on to brace yourself when getting in and out of that car. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. Think back to just a little while ago when we compared the Nash Healey, Kaiser Darrin, and Chevy Corvette. Out of those three, which one would you rather have? Moving on to the second scenario, 1954 MGA or 1954 Kaiser Darrin or the original, the GOAT, 1954 Jaguar XK120. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of it. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below, or you could always email me at what_its_like@yahoo.com. We also have a Facebook group that correlates with this YouTube channel that gives you the opportunity to share your ride stories, experiences, anything car related that you would love to share. Feel free to share on there. Whether I see you in the comment section here or on the Facebook page, or if you send me an email, just know I appreciate everything that you guys bring to this channel and making it into a car community more than a car channel. Thank you all so much for everything. Until next time, toodaloo! The Corvette was powered by essentially a modified truck engine with pressurized oiling system, 3 downdraft carburetors, overhead valve, producing 150 to 155 horsepower with a top speed of 108 miles to the gallon. Damn it. I found this 1954 Kaiser Darrin. It was part of the Gilmore Auto Museum. It's currently on display, and I know I'm going to get at least one person that says in the comment section, it never fails. I always get at least one person, hey, it says don't touch the cars. Can't you read? You're not allowed to touch the cars. That's what it says. I had permission. I shouldn't have to say everything that I was allowed to do or explain every single aspect of everything. But for some people, I guess you just do. I'm going to cut that part out. His offer wasn't good enough to not be refused. Too many double negatives, I think, in that. Travis Tritt was involved in Glassbar, G2, and Wood Drill Wildfire. No, that's Bill Tritt, not Travis. Travis Tritt was a country singer. Howard Johnson would buy the remaining samples or whatever was left at Kaiser, and he would have them retrofitted by adding superchargers, multiple carburetors, to get more power, baby, out of those engines. Howard Johnson would even stuff Cadillac V8s in, said to be, it's conflicting information, but it's Howard Darrin, not Howard Johnson. Against the wind, I'm still farting against the wind.